Simon Leviev, the so-called Tinder scammer, stole over $10 million by posing as a diamond heir. After years of living in luxury on stolen love, he was finally caught at Batumi airport. This is the full story of his rise and fall. On Tinder, he looked like a dream come true. His name was Simon Leviev, his smile confident, his clothes tailored, and his backdrop always exotic. Private jets, infinity pools, candlelit dinners in five-star hotels. Every photo screamed wealth and power. Women swiping late at night in London, Paris, New York, and beyond thought they had stumbled across a real-life Prince Charming. The bio sealed the deal. Son of a diamond magnate. Heir to an empire. Always traveling. Looking for someone to share the adventure. It was short, simple, but seductive. A man like that did not just date anyone. To match with him was like winning a golden ticket. The women who matched with Simon quickly realized he was no ordinary man. When he invited them to meet, it was never coffee in a local cafe. Instead, it was dinner at the most exclusive restaurants. A limousine arrived, a driver held the door, and suddenly they were seated at a table where the cheapest bottle of wine cost more than most people's monthly rent. He leaned in close, speaking with a smooth accent and a calm voice. He told them about his father, the legendary Diamond King. He hinted at business meetings, dangerous deals, and international travel. To prove his story, he pulled out his phone and showed photos of him on jets, in luxury hotels, always surrounded by wealth. The women left those first dates feeling like they had been chosen. Not just chosen for romance, but chosen to enter another world. Simon's strategy was simple but devastatingly effective. He gave them a taste of wealth so intoxicating that they began to trust him completely. When he booked last-minute trips, he casually said, "Come with me. I have to be in Rome tonight, or maybe Paris tomorrow." Women found themselves boarding private jets with him, sipping champagne at 30,000 feet, their heads spinning with disbelief. He never acted like a man trying to impress. He acted like a man who already had it all. The money, the contacts, the life of a global billionaire's son. And the scariest part was, everything looked real. The jets were real. The hotels were real. The dinners were real. What the women did not know was that it was all paid for with someone else's sacrifice. He used the title Prince of Diamonds, without ever saying the words outright. It was in the way he dropped details, the way he talked about mines, deals, and enemies in hushed tones. He never begged for trust. He demanded it by painting a picture so vivid that it was impossible to doubt. Every move he made reinforced the fantasy. He sent flowers so large they filled entire rooms. He gifted jewelry boxes with glittering stones. He whisked women away to exotic cities and suites where chandeliers sparkled overhead. Behind every smile, every toast, every lavish gesture was the same hidden truth. The money he spent on one woman came from the desperation of another. The fairy tale was already funded by heartbreak. By the time the first dates ended, the women were hooked. They felt chosen, loved, swept into a whirlwind of romance. Their friends gasped when they showed photos. Their families whispered in envy. Simon had crafted an illusion so strong that it became their reality. But in the shadows, the trap was already set. Every dinner, every flight, every diamond bracelet was bait. The women thought they had met the heir to a diamond fortune. What they had really met was a man building a pyramid of lies, one swipe at a time. The rise of Simon Leviev was not a love story. It was the opening act of one of the strangest scams the world had ever seen. At first, Simon was all about charm. Smiles, dinners, jets, the good life. But once his victims were fully wrapped in his fantasy, the tone shifted. The laughter turned into whispers. The champagne glasses were replaced by late-night phone calls. His texts arrived with urgency, his voice messages filled with tension. He told them the same chilling story. He had enemies. Dangerous men who hated him, men who wanted to hurt him and destroy his father's diamond empire. He said they followed him everywhere, that every trip and every flight carried the shadow of danger. For women already swept off their feet, the fear was contagious. If Simon was in danger, then so were they. Protecting him felt like protecting themselves. Simon knew words alone would not be enough. He backed them with theatrics. Late at night, his victims received photos of his bodyguard lying in a hospital bed, covered in bandages, looking as if he had been attacked. There were grainy videos of luxury cars with broken windows, photos of supposed threats, even fake police reports. The effect was powerful. The women gasped, their hearts raced, and their sympathy deepened. They believed the man they loved was being hunted. To doubt him now would mean doubting the luxurious life they had already seen with their own eyes. He sealed the illusion with desperation in his voice. He would call, his tone breaking, saying, "They are after me again. I cannot use my cards. My accounts are frozen. They are watching me. I need your help." This was where the trap closed. Simon never begged outright. He framed it as a temporary lifeline. "Just send me something. I will pay you back the moment I can access my accounts. You know who I am. You have seen my life. I would never leave you in debt." The victims hesitated at first, but the memory of the private jet, the dinners, the gifts, the trips silenced the doubt. This was not some random stranger asking for money. This was the heir to a diamond fortune, the man who had already shown them his world. So they agreed. The first transfers were small. A few thousand here, a few thousand there. But Simon's requests grew bolder. 10,000, 20,000. Some women even took out loans, convinced that saving him now meant securing a future with him. Once the money was wired, Simon's tone flipped again. He thanked them profusely, sending long messages about how they had saved his life. He flooded their phones with "I love you" and "You are my angel," until the women felt reassured. The fear turned into pride. They believed they had done something noble, something heroic. But just as quickly, another crisis would arrive. Another enemy attack, another frozen account, another urgent request. The cycle repeated until the women were financially drained. What made the scam so effective was not the money itself. It was the emotional hook. These women were not just investing cash. They were investing their hearts, their trust, their futures. By the time they realized how deep they were, it was too late. Credit card bills stacked on kitchen tables. Calls from banks piled up. Parents and friends asked questions they could not answer. The women stared at their reflections in mirrors, ashamed, wondering how they had fallen so far. But Simon kept moving, spinning the same tale for the next victim. The story of enemies and danger was his greatest weapon. It trapped women in invisible chains, forged from fear and love, until they were both broke and broken. The Prince of Diamonds had transformed into a master of shadows, and his victims were left paying the price for a battle that never existed. Simon's brilliance, if you could call it that, was in how he kept the machine running. He never needed investors, banks, or business partners. He had a different system. One woman's loan became the down payment for the next woman's fairy tale. Every dinner, every flight, every hotel suite was bought with stolen trust. To the victim in London, her money was saving Simon's life. To the woman in Oslo, the same money became champagne and roses. And to the new match in Stockholm, it was the dazzling illusion of wealth that would hook her in. It was not just a scam. It was a conveyor belt of broken hearts, each fueling the next. Imagine this. Anna from Finland wires him 20,000 to escape danger. That very same week, Simon flies another woman, Christina, to Rome. Christina posts photos with him on Instagram, amazed at his generosity, while Anna is maxing out her credit cards in a panic. The cycle repeated endlessly. Money came in from one desperate victim, went straight out to dazzle the next, and then circled back as new victims fell into debt. It was a financial carousel, spinning faster and faster, leaving chaos in its wake. Every luxury photo on Tinder, every glamorous post, was really a billboard paid for by another woman's shattered finances. By the time journalists and investigators pieced the puzzle together, the scale was staggering. Women across Europe and beyond had lost millions. Some estimates reached over $10 million. One woman pawned family heirlooms. Another took out 5 different bank loans, believing she was rescuing the love of her life. Some victims ended up bankrupt, unable to pay rent, with debt collectors at their doors. The heartbreak was not just emotional. It was financial ruin. And all the while, Simon kept walking through airports with designer luggage, wearing watches worth more than the debt of his victims combined. The strangest part was how untouchable he seemed. He moved across borders with ease, always in a new city, always in luxury hotels. Photos showed him grinning in yachts, lounging in beach clubs, clinking glasses in rooftop bars. And because every step of his journey looked real, women continued to believe the lie. After all, how could a man surrounded by so much wealth possibly be faking it? He even bragged openly online, posting videos of himself in penthouses, acting like nothing could touch him. The illusion became stronger than the truth. Even when cracks appeared, victims silenced their doubts, convinced that love and fortune were just around the corner. But pyramids are heavy structures, and eventually, even the strongest facade begins to wobble. Women started to talk. Stories overlapped. Bank officers raised red flags. Journalists received tips. A Netflix documentary team began digging into the layers of lies. The cracks widened as victims realized they were not alone. They were part of something much bigger, a global web of deceit. Simon thought his empire of trust could last forever, but the same machine that kept him afloat was now pulling him down. For every woman he fooled, another began to see through the mask. The Prince of Diamonds was standing on a pyramid of broken promises, and the base was starting to collapse. After years of scamming across Europe, Simon acted like a man shielded by invincibility. The Netflix documentary had already made him infamous, yet he still strolled through airports, still stayed in luxury hotels, still posed with champagne glasses like nothing had changed. He thought he was clever enough to stay one step ahead. He used fake names, forged passports, and constantly changed cities. To him, airports were not dangerous checkpoints. They were runways for his ego. Each stamp in his passport was proof that he was still untouchable. But arrogance blinds even the most careful con. It was an ordinary afternoon at Batumi International Airport in Georgia. Families lined up with suitcases, tourists returned from beach vacations, and the buzz of announcements echoed through the terminal. Simon Leviev walked in with his usual swagger, pulling sleek luggage, dressed sharply, with expensive sunglasses covering his eyes. He approached the border control desk like he had done 100 times before. His forged passport slid across the counter with practiced ease. He flashed his trademark smile, the same smile that had seduced so many victims. But this time, the smile did not work. The officer scanned the passport. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the screen blinked red. His name lit up. Simon Leviev, wanted internationally. A man flagged for fraud, for theft, for deception across multiple countries. The officer looked up slowly, eyes narrowing. Simon tried to keep his composure, but a flicker of panic crossed his face. He straightened his jacket, adjusted his sunglasses, and muttered something about business travel. It did not matter. Uniformed officers were already on the move. Two stepped up from behind, another blocked the exit. Passengers nearby whispered in disbelief, recognizing the man from headlines and memes. Phones came out. Cameras clicked. The Tinder swindler, the so-called Prince of Diamonds, was caught in the most ordinary of traps, a routine passport check. The officers grabbed his arms firmly, pulling them behind his back as the handcuffs snapped shut. The metallic sound echoed across the terminal, louder than the airport announcements. Simon raised his voice, trying to charm or argue his way out. He insisted it was a mistake, demanded to call his contacts, claimed he had powerful friends. But the officers were unmoved. They had seen his file. They knew exactly who he was. The once untouchable scammer, who had flown on private jets and dined under crystal chandeliers, was now being walked through an airport corridor in handcuffs. His sunglasses hung crooked, his hair was damp with sweat, and for the first time in years, he looked small. News spread within hours. Photos of him in custody flashed across screens worldwide. Social media lit up with cheers, jokes, and disbelief. Victims who had lost everything cried when they saw him in chains. Some felt justice, others only a hollow reminder that their money was gone forever. The irony was impossible to ignore. After years of elaborate lies, fake documents, and an empire of deception, Simon Leviev was not taken down by a brilliant sting operation or a daring chase. He was undone by the simplest of things, a border officer doing his job. For Simon, the game was over. The mask had finally slipped, and the world had seen the man behind it. By the next morning, the arrest was everywhere. Headlines screamed across every continent. The Tinder scammer caught in Batumi Airport. News anchors delivered the story with a mix of disbelief and satisfaction. On social media, his mugshot spread faster than his fake Tinder profile ever had. Memes exploded. Some showed him in handcuffs captioned, "Your enemies caught you this time." Others mocked his infamous line about frozen accounts. For years he had lived like a ghost, charming his way past suspicion. Now he was nothing more than a cautionary tale splashed across trending hashtags. For the women he had deceived, the news hit like a tidal wave. Some wept with relief, finally seeing the man who had drained their savings face justice. One victim told reporters, "I lost everything, but at least the world now knows who he really is." Another admitted, "It does not bring back my money, but it brings back some of my dignity." But not all felt closure. Many victims were still drowning in debt. Collectors still knocked at their doors. Families still questioned their judgment. For them, Simon's arrest was only a partial victory. The scars he left were deeper than any prison sentence could erase. When Simon finally appeared in court, the illusion was gone. The man once dressed in designer suits now stood in a plain prison uniform. His head was bowed, his hands cuffed. The same judges and lawyers who had seen his case on Netflix now had him standing in front of them. The prosecution laid out the scale of his crimes. Over $10 million stolen through romance fraud. Dozens of victims across multiple countries. Years of manipulation, forged documents, and psychological warfare. The court became a stage where his empire of lies was dismantled piece by piece. Simon tried to speak, still clinging to his old performance. He insisted he had been misunderstood, that his wealth was real, that he had done nothing illegal. But the charm was gone. No one was buying the act anymore. Outside the courtroom, the debate raged. Some argued he should serve decades in prison. Others marveled at how long he had managed to run free. There were even those who bizarrely admired his audacity, calling him a criminal genius or the boldest scammer of our time. But the overwhelming consensus was clear. Simon Leviev had built his empire on lies and stolen trust, and now it had collapsed under the weight of his arrogance. The Prince of Diamonds was nothing more than a common fraud. For the public, his story became entertainment. For his victims, it remained a lifelong wound. As Simon sat in his cell, the irony was sharp. He had flown on private jets, slept in penthouses, eaten at the finest tables. Yet every dollar had come from someone else's pocket, someone else's heart. He thought he was building a kingdom. Instead, he built a house of cards. And the truth about houses of cards is simple. They always fall. The world was reminded of one bitter lesson. Love can blind even the smartest people. Trust can be weaponized, and a charming smile can cost millions. Simon Leviev once promised women the world. All he gave them was debt and heartbreak. Now his name stands forever as a warning. Every scam, no matter how elaborate, eventually runs out of time. This is the end of that story. Now tell me in the comments, what's your most unbelievable story? I'll read out the funniest ones in the next video. Do not forget to hit a like button and subscribe. See you.